Hey there, fellow gardeners. Welcome back to the Soil House. Today, I'm pulling back the curtain on something that's been hidden in plain sight for 8 decades. It's a soil amendment so powerful that it can genuinely triple your harvest, yet somehow it's been pushed to the margins of modern gardening. Why? Because there's no profit in secrets that work too well. Let me take you back to World War II, when victory gardens weren't just trendy, they were survival. During those uncertain years, everyday people were producing 40% of America's vegetables right in their backyards. But here's what most history books won't tell you. These gardeners weren't using chemical fertilizers. They were using something far more revolutionary. Something that transformed depleted soil into black gold within months. That secret? Biochar mixed with specific composting techniques that created what soil scientists now call Terra Preta. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Picture this. It's 1943, and agricultural scientists are desperately trying to maximize food production. They stumbled upon something remarkable in the Amazon basin, soil that had been enriched by indigenous peoples thousands of years ago, and it was still incredibly fertile. This soil, dubbed Terra Preta, or Black Earth, contained up to 3 times more organic carbon than surrounding soils and could hold nutrients like a sponge. The active ingredient? Charcoal that had been specially processed and combined with organic matter. But here's where it gets interesting. As the war ended and chemical companies pivoted from making explosives to making fertilizers, this discovery was quietly shelved. Why sell someone a one-time soil amendment that lasts decades when you can sell them chemical fertilizers every single season? I discovered this myself about 5 years ago when my tomato plants were just struggling, even though I was following every conventional gardening tip out there. Then I had a conversation with an elderly gardener at my local farmer's market, and honestly, that changed everything for me. She told me about her father's victory garden and how he used what she called charred wood magic to keep his soil productive for decades. That single conversation, it sent me down a rabbit hole that ended up transforming not just my garden, but my whole understanding of soil health. Now, before we get into how you can actually use this in your own garden, let's take a moment to understand why this works so incredibly well. Biochar, that's the technical term for this processed charcoal. It's not just burned wood. It's made through a process called pyrolysis, where organic material is heated in a low-oxygen environment. This creates a carbon structure that's, honestly, incredibly porous, kind of like a microscopic apartment complex for all those beneficial soil microbes. Think of it this way, each little particle of biochar has, millions of tiny holes and channels. These spaces become homes for beneficial bacteria, fungi, and other microorganisms that really form the foundation of healthy soil. But it doesn't stop there. The surface area of just 1 gram of biochar can actually exceed 500 square meters. That's about the size of a basketball court, all folded into something smaller than your fingernail. Pretty amazing, right? This massive surface area acts like a nutrient battery for your soil. It holds on to nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and micronutrients, preventing them from washing away with rain or irrigation. Instead of feeding your plants once and watching half of those nutrients leach into groundwater, biochar captures and slowly releases them exactly when your plants need them. It's kind of like the difference between getting your paycheck all at once and immediately losing half of it, versus having it deposited into a high-yield savings account that pays out exactly when you need it. Here's the uncomfortable truth that I need to share with you. The global fertilizer market is worth over $200 billion annually. That's billion with a B. These companies have built empires on selling products that you need to purchase repeatedly, season after season, year after year. Now imagine if gardeners and farmers discovered that a one-time soil amendment could dramatically reduce their fertilizer needs for years, even decades. That's not a business model. That's a business killer. I'm not saying there's some grand conspiracy, but I am saying that economic incentives matter. When biochar research started gaining traction in the early 2000s, it mysteriously received far less funding than studies on new chemical fertilizer formulations. When gardening magazines started covering it, those articles often disappeared from later editions. The information isn't suppressed violently, it's just quietly discouraged, underfunded, and marginalized. But here's what they can't hide: the results. When I first added biochar to half my raised beds as a test, the difference was so dramatic that my neighbors thought I was using some secret commercial fertilizer. The biochar beds produced tomatoes that were 60% heavier, lettuce that grew twice as fast, and peppers that kept producing weeks longer than my control beds. That was 5 years ago, and those same beds are still outperforming new beds I create with just compost alone. Now let's get practical, because this information is useless if you can't implement it. Creating biochar at home isn't difficult, but it does require following some specific steps to do it safely and effectively. The traditional method involves digging a cone-shaped pit and burning wood in a controlled, low-oxygen environment. However, I'm going to share a safer, more practical method that works perfectly for backyard gardeners like us. You'll need a metal drum with a lid, hardwood scraps or branches, and an afternoon of time. Start by drilling several holes near the bottom of your drum for limited airflow. Fill it about 2/3 full with hardwood pieces, roughly 2 to 4 inches in diameter. Pine and other softwoods work in a pinch, but hardwoods produce superior biochar. Light the wood and let it burn until all the pieces are glowing red. This is crucial. You want complete combustion of the wood's gases and tars. Here's the critical moment. When the wood is fully red and glowing, but before it turns to white ash, you need to stop the process. Put the lid on the drum and seal it as best you can, or carefully quench the charcoal with water. You're aiming for chunks of pure black charcoal, not gray ash. If you end up with ash, you've gone too far. Ash is useful for raising soil pH, but it's not biochar. Once your charcoal cools, you need to charge it before adding it to your soil. Raw biochar will actually pull nutrients from your soil initially, as it begins absorbing materials to fill all those porous spaces. To prevent this, crush your biochar into pieces ranging from dust to grape-sized chunks. Then soak it in a mixture of compost tea urine. Yes, really, it's pure nitrogen. Or liquid fertilizer for at least 2 weeks. This next part is what separates okay results from extraordinary ones. The World War II gardeners didn't know the science, but they knew through trial and error that mixing their charcoal with specific organic materials created something far more powerful than either ingredient alone. After your biochar has been charging for at least 2 weeks, mix it thoroughly with high-quality compost at a ratio of about 1 part biochar to 3 parts compost. Let this mixture age together for another month if possible, turning it weekly. During this time, the beneficial microbes from your compost are colonizing every nook and cranny of the biochar, creating a living matrix that will supercharge your soil. The ratio matters here. Too much biochar, and you'll lock up nutrients and create a temporary nutrient deficiency in your plants. Too little, and you won't see the dramatic results this method is capable of producing. I've found through extensive testing that a final mixture of 10 to 20% biochar in your growing medium produces optimal results for most vegetables and herbs. When you're ready to apply this to your garden beds, work it into the top 6 to 8 inches of soil. For new beds, I mix it throughout the entire depth. For established beds, I create planting holes and fill them with the biochar compost mixture, then plant directly into these enriched zones. Let me be specific about what you can actually expect, because I don't want to oversell this. Tripling your harvest is possible, but it depends on your starting point and what crops you're growing. If you're starting with decent soil and good gardening practices, you might see yields increase by 50 to 100%. If you're starting with poor soil, the improvements can be genuinely transformative. In my own garden, cherry tomatoes went from producing about 2 pounds per plant to over 6 pounds. My lettuce growing season extended by nearly a month on both ends because the plants were healthier and more cold tolerant. Root vegetables like carrots and beets developed more consistent size and shape because the improved soil structure eliminated compaction issues. But the benefits go beyond just harvest weight. The flavor improved noticeably, something I initially attributed to placebo effect until my farmers market customers started asking what I was doing differently. Plants showed increased disease resistance, requiring far fewer interventions for common issues like powdery mildew and blossom end rot. Water retention improved so dramatically that I cut my irrigation frequency by nearly half, even during hot summer months. Here's where this really gets exciting. Unlike chemical fertilizers that provide a temporary boost, or even regular compost that breaks down within a season or two, biochar is essentially permanent. The carbon structure is so stable that it lasts for hundreds, even thousands of years. Those Amazonian soils I mentioned earlier, they're still productive today, thousands of years after they were created. This means your initial investment of time and effort pays dividends for decades. Every year, as more organic matter decomposes and integrates with your biochar, your soil becomes richer and more productive. It's genuinely building wealth in your soil, creating a legacy that could outlive you. I've now been using biochar-enhanced soil for 5 years, and I'm still seeing improvements. The microbial diversity in my soil has exploded. Lab tests show populations of beneficial bacteria and fungi that are orders of magnitude higher than typical garden soil. This biological richness means my plants have access to nutrients that would otherwise remain locked up and unavailable. If you're feeling overwhelmed, start small. Don't try to amend your entire garden at once. Choose one bed or even just a few pots and experiment. Document your results with photos and harvest weights so you can see the difference clearly. I guarantee that once you see what this can do, you'll want to expand the practice to your entire growing space. So, for those who, don't want to make their own biochar, it's actually becoming more available commercially these days, though it can be a bit expensive. Now, you'll want to look for products that are specifically labeled as biochar, not just regular charcoal, and make sure it's been produced from clean wood sources without any chemicals or additives. If you're going the commercial route, remember, you'll still want to charge it before use. Many commercial biochars are sold uncharged just to reduce shipping weight. The fertilizer companies buried this secret because it worked too well and threatened their business model. But here's the beautiful thing about knowledge. Once it's out, it can't be put back in the box. We're part of a growing movement of gardeners who are rediscovering these traditional techniques and proving that we don't need to be dependent on industrial agriculture's chemical treadmill. Your soil is alive, and when you treat it as the complex ecosystem it truly is, providing habitat, food, and structure for billions of beneficial organisms, it rewards you with abundance that seems almost magical. This isn't magic, though. It's just what healthy soil has always been capable of when we work with nature instead of against it. So, here's my challenge to you. Try this method in at least one corner of your garden this season. Document your results and share them with our community here at the Soil House. Together, we're not just growing better gardens. We're preserving and spreading knowledge that can genuinely change how people feed themselves. If this article opened your eyes to what's possible in your own garden, hit that subscribe button and share this with your fellow gardening friends. Let's make sure this secret stays uncovered for the next generation of gardeners. Drop a comment below and let me know if you're going to try this method and what questions you have. I read every single comment and love hearing from you all. Keep growing, keep learning, and remember, the best fertilizer is always knowledge. I'll see you in the next one.